All right, now this is the valve. I've taken the bottom cover off. That thing goes down there like that. When you take this thing out of the box, there's no wire. So in the box, you're going to find the valve, and then this is the transformer. This is a 120 volt transformer. It plugs into the wall, and then it reduces the electricity down to 24 volts, which operates this timer and will operate the solenoid valve. This is the solenoid valve. I'll pull this out of the box here. It's got 2 wires on it. We'll get to that in a minute. So basically, this timer is not waterproof. It is not waterproof. It has to be mounted inside of a garage, in a building. It's got to be mounted inside. It cannot get wet. If it gets wet, it's toast. It's not guaranteed if you get it wet. There's no way in the world that it cannot be subjected to water whatsoever. This valve is waterproof. This is mounted outside. I've got garden hose hooked to each end of it. This goes outside. It can be in the rain. It can be all of that. So really, really important for you to understand. Now this timer comes with it's got a battery backup. There's a 9-volt battery. The battery will not operate the mist system, but it holds the program. So if your power goes out, you don't lose your program. So the very first thing you're going to do when these things are shipped, these wires are not hooked up. So basically there are 2 wiring connections that you're going to make. On the left hand block inside of here, you're going to see two little pegs that are marked AC. That's the AC current coming into the timer. So these 2 black wires from this transformer go to these 2 terminals right here that are marked AC. So you just stick them in there, and then with a little tiny screwdriver tighten down those screws. The other side, these are where this timer actually has the ability to run 6 different valves at 6 different times with 6 different programs. Like I said, it's very complex. Don't even think about that. Let's think about 1 valve, because that's all I use mine for, and if you want to add more valves to yours later, you can do that. So anyway, on the other side of this, you're going to have, there's 2 wires coming off of this solenoid valve. And polarity doesn't matter. Polarity doesn't matter here. When you hook this up, you can flip-flop them. It doesn't matter, so don't worry about the positive and the negative. That's irrelevant in this situation. So you're going to hook these 2 black wires on the left-hand side where it says AC, and then on this side there are 6 different blocks, 1 for each valve if you were running more than 1 valve. We're only going to use valve number 1. So valve number 1. So when you're hooking up your valves, 1 wire from your valve is going to go on this block, and then the common wire is going to go under here under these 2 common terminals. You're only going to use 1 of those right now. So basically you're going to hook 1 wire here, and then the other wire is going to hook over here. So you can hook to valve number 1, and then you're going to hook to the common wire. This is 20 gauge thermostat wire. I like to use this because it's not stranded, it's solid core, it's easy to work with, it doesn't fray and do all kinds of crazy things when you're trying to hook it up. You can get this at any hardware store. It's solid core, it's only 2 wires in there, not 6. A lot of thermostat wire has 6 wires because it runs air conditioning and humidistats and all kinds of stuff. So you want the 2 wire solid core copper. 20 gauge is plenty heavy enough. So basically you're going to hook this wire to terminal number 1, and then hook the other one to over here to one of the common terminals, and then the other end of this wire will go through the wall and outside where it will hook to this valve. So basically that's the wiring setup. Again, 1 wire from this thermostat wire hooks to number 1. The other wire is going to hook to one of the C terminals up here on the top on the left, common. And then the other end of that hooks to these 2 wires from the valve. Again, polarity does not matter. So alright, so basically once you get that hooked up, now we're going to stick this 9-volt battery in here, because this is what's going to hold our program. So in the event of a power failure, we don't lose our program. We're going to stick that right in there, and then this little doodad goes in here. Give it about a 1/4 of a turn, and that's all there is to it. This cover can go back on once we have our wires hooked up. Oops, I got my wires in there. There we go, just like that. Now, flip the cover up. This is our timer. Basically, what we're going to tell this timer to do, we're going to tell it when to start the cycle in the morning, when to stop the cycle in the afternoon. We're going to tell it which valve that we want to operate. We're going to operate valve number 1. We're going to tell it how often to water. So that's going to be every 10 minutes, and we're going to tell it what the duration is, and that's going to be 10 seconds. This is flashing right now. The little clock symbol is telling us, means that we're going to set the time. So we want to set this to the current time. So I've got 12:27 p.m. So this crazy looking button there, and Amber, does that symbol mean anything to you? I don't know. It's like a return button or an enter button. So basically we're going to use these arrow keys to move from module to module to module, and then plus or minus to make the adjustment. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this arrow key. Now my hour is flashing, and it is 12:27 p.m. So I'm going to keep hitting the plus button until I get to 12 p.m. I'm going to hit the arrow key again. That's going to take me over to the minutes. I'm going to go down to 12:27. All right there is 12:27 p.m. So now I'm going to hit this little return button. That's going to take us to the next phase of setting this timer. Now you'll notice that the little icon up here, it looks like a little water faucet. It's asking us which valve we want to program. We want to program valve number 1, and that's where the pointer is, so we don't have to change that. Now later on, if you want to add more valves, you're going to use the arrow keys to move over to different valves so you can determine which valve you're going to program. But don't even think about that now. Let's just program valve number 1. So up here, the little valve indicator, down here valve number 1. So I'm going to hit the return button again. Now we got a little hourglass. And the hourglass is next to duration. So that is asking us how long do we want the water to stay on once it comes on. We're doing propagation, so we want this to be in minutes. So I'm going to hit the arrow. The hour button is flashing. That's already on 0. I'm going to leave it where it is. The minute button is flashing. That's on 2 minutes. That's way too long. So I'm going to take that down to 0. So now I'm going to hit the arrow button again. Now I'm over on seconds. So now I'm going to take this up to 10 seconds. Using the plus button. Okay, so now I've got 0 hours, 0 minutes, 10 seconds for duration. Remember, the little hourglass is duration. So now I'm going to hit the return button because that's what I want. Now this is going to ask us the number of days a week. So this little calendar is the days, and up here at the top there's Monday through Sunday. Well, we want this to go into a cyclical cycle, so I'm just going to use the arrow key. And that's going to take us through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I keep hitting the arrow key. Saturday, Sunday. All right, now after Sunday, it's going to show the little cyclical arrow up here means that this is going to be a continuous thing until we tell it not to operate. So basically it said once, and it returned back to the beginning because I didn't act quick enough. So I'm going to hit return again. Okay, duration. All right, now we're back to right here once, and I'm going to hit the arrow key. All right, whoops. All right, and then I'm going to hit the plus. So this plus sign, so instead of once, all right, I hit the plus sign. Now I've got this set for 10 minutes. You can't set this in seconds. You can set it for hours or minutes, and that's how often the cycle is going to repeat itself, okay? So it's returned back to the beginning. So now there's my valve setting number 1. Duration is 10 seconds. I hit the button again. So this is the cyclical time is every 10 minutes. Now I'm going to hit this return button again. This is asking me what time I want to start this because I'm starting it in the middle of the day. It's 12:44 right now, so I'm going to set the start time at 1 p.m. because I want it to start right away or almost right away here. So it's 1:44. We'll let it start at 1:44 p.m. So that start time, in other words, if it's noon and you're programming your timer, make sure you put the start time just a few minutes past that so that it can start right away. All right, so let's go back through the steps. Duration is 10 seconds. The cyclical time is 10 minutes, so it's going to go 10 seconds every 10 minutes. Start 1 is 1:44 p.m. Now this right here, this is a sensor. See, there's a rain sensor. We're not using a rain sensor, so don't worry about that. Just hit the return button again. Now this is important. There's a little open book. This is the window open. So there's a window of time during the day when we want this cycle to happen. So basically, I'm going to hit the arrow key let's see, all right, plus. All right, so I hit the plus key. So now I want this to open at 8 a.m. So I'm going to, all right, so now I got that set for 8 a.m. I'm going to hit the return button again. This is going to close. It's got a little closed book, so it shows right here there's a closed book, and we'll close. I want this to close at 7 p.m. and I didn't hit the arrow key. All right, there we go. So make sure you pay close attention to the AM and PM settings. All right, that's 7 p.m. So I'm going to hit the return button. Now there's a manual override for rain off. We got that in the off position. I don't ever worry about that if it rains. I just let the timer do what it's going to do. All right, so now I'm back to the beginning. And I don't have the days set right here because today is actually Thursday. So, but let me see. All right, so, all right, valve number 1. All right, there's the valve number 1. Duration, 10 seconds. The cyclical time is every 10 minutes. Start time 1:44 p.m. because that's after the time that I'm setting this timer, so I want it to start right away. And then this is the sensor. We don't use the sensor, so that's in the off position. Window open, we want all this activity to start at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. depending on what. So I've got this set to start at 8 a.m. Window close 7 p.m. So that means that starting at 8 a.m. in the morning, this timer is going to open and close that valve every 10 minutes, and it's going to water the cuttings for 10 seconds every 10 minutes. And then at 7 p.m. it's going to stop watering, and it won't start again until 8 a.m. the next morning. Rain sensor is off. So basically, when I set the time, I probably should have set that for Thursday, but since we run this thing on a continual basis, 7 days a week, that's irrelevant. So basically, now if you happen to go through this program and you don't, this is important, you got to see this little cyclical setting here, because when you go through the days of the week, that's when you get that. You're going to go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then this little cyclical thing will come up and it'll say once. You want to change that to 10 minutes. And then when you have that, that's when you're going to see the window open, window close. And if you don't have that cyclical symbol up there, you're not going to have the opportunity to set this. So then you know that's where you made your mistake. So basically that's it. All right, I'm going to go back to the very beginning, 12:38 p.m. Valve number 1, valve picture, here's the valve number 1. Duration 10 seconds. The cyclical time is every 10 minutes. We're going to start it at 1:40. That's start valve number 1. There's a little 1 right next to this, so that's important. We're talking about valve number 1. So that's going to start at 1:44 p.m. You know, I'm going to take you back there in a second. Rain sensor, don't worry about that. We don't use that. Window open 8 a.m. Window closed 7 p.m. The manual sensor is off. Time setting. All right, I want to take you back and show you right here. We're going to start this at 1:44 p.m. and 0 days. So that means that it's going to run, when you set it for 0 days, it's going to run almost pretty much on a till forbid basis. It's going to run over and over and over. So if you put days in there, it would only repeat that cycle for so many days or on certain days. So that's got to be set to 0. So basically what you want to do is you want to set all this up before you take any cuttings, and then let the timer run, let the mist run, let it spray water. It really costs very little money whatsoever, even if you're using city water. So you want to let this thing run without cuttings in there to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But basically, that's how you program the timer.